Hi guys, it's been a long time. This is Mr. Ryguy92 Ryan posting another UFC video, post-fight video, UFC 154, George St. Pierre versus Carlos Condit. The fight finally happened November 17th, 2012. What a fight it was. Really excited to see GSP back in the cage. Definitely my favorite fighter in the UFC. I really love watching watching him use all the tools that he has. He's such a gifted athlete. Um, his transitions were good. His wrestling was good. His stand-up was okay. Besides the head kick that landed by Carlos Condit. Overall, I was really happy. Um, with the fight itself. I was really impressed with Carlos Condit, the way he carried himself throughout the whole fight. He was clearly beaten, but he didn't give up, and I really respect that. He really is a true uh, champion, you know, warrior. He's not a champion obviously, but he's a warrior. And I really respect that. He gave it his all in there, and he'd been a tough challenge for anyone that came into his path, except for GSP. GSP was able to, um, beat him and make his case as to, why he is still one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. Other news on the card was Martin Kampmann versus Johnny Hendricks. This was hyped up to be a number one contender fight between the two guys. Kampmann has been in the UFC for a long time, a former middleweight himself. Um, he had some really great fights against Thiago Alves, Jake Ellenberger, Rick Story, a lot of comeback victories. I was really pulling for him in this fight. He's the longer tenured UFC guy, and I kind of like to go with the veteran, but Johnny Hendricks is the real deal with the knockout, 46-second knockout that he had against Martin Kampmann. He really impressed me with that left hand yet again, the same punch that he landed on John Fitch and the same punch he battered Josh Koscheck with in their fight in their 3-round decision. So I was really happy with that. Really happy for Johnny Hendricks, even though I was rooting for Martin Kampmann. Um, Possibly due to Kampmann losing and Condit losing, we could see Condit versus Kampmann 2. They had fought before, and it was a really close fight that actually went in Kampmann's favor, I believe. So, that would be interesting to see. Maybe another rematch for Condit, maybe a fight that could, avenge him and maybe put him back in the contender, limelight. Um, Besides that, there really was not any interesting fights on the card whatsoever. So, that's really all I have to say. Um, Aftermath, the UFC 154 is probably some of the biggest aftermath in UFC, history. Probably the biggest in UFC history. Anderson Silva was cage side, um, and waiting for GSP. Um, waiting for the decision. GSP won. Thankfully, Anderson Silva did not go into the octagon. I was really happy about that. GSP had just fought a 5-round war. His first fight in 19 months. He's, cements his legacy even more, coming back from a devastating ACL injury. Um, Dr. James Andrews, who had done the knee surgery on, um, Tom Brady, when Tom Brady suffered his knee injury in 2009, I believe it was, and 2008, pardon me, and it just wouldn't have been sportsmanlike for Anderson Silva to come in there and do that. So I was really happy that he didn't. Um, Really happy with the fact that he did what a champion would do, and let GSP have his time in the limelight, not hoard the spotlight sort of thing. Which that was good. But Anderson Silva does want to fight GSP, which would be amazing if that were to happen. I would really be interested in seeing that fight. But it just I don't think that it makes sense for GSP to move up and meet Anderson at a catch weight. Anderson wants to fight him, so I think that Anderson needs to fight GSP more than GSP needs to fight him. So I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm really on the fence about it. I've been thinking about it a lot the past few days since UFC 154, and I just don't see it happening. GSP barely is 5'11". I don't even think he's 5'10" personally, but I'm not. I've never met the guy personally or anything, but I don't even. He looked really small compared to Carlos Condit, even height wise, and even weight wise. He looked. He's a welterweight. So I think if they were to fight each other, Anderson would be a lot bigger than GSP, and it just doesn't really make sense. It doesn't fit. If they were to meet at like 175 pounds, um, Anderson would have to suck all that weight down. I think that would be fair. I think that would be fair. Anderson wants to fight him really bad. I think Anderson Silva needs to fight George St. Pierre. I don't think George St. Pierre needs to fight Anderson Silva at all. Um, GSP still has a lot of challengers out there in that 170 welterweight class. That 170 division is always one of the most exciting divisions. Besides, even when GSP was out, it was still an exciting, irrelevant division in the sport. Nick Diaz is still left. Johnny Hendricks, I think Johnny Hendricks does deserve a chance to fight George St. Pierre. He went up against Martin Kampmann. He was a 9-1 underdog. He finished him off in 46 seconds. He beat John Fitch in 9 seconds. Two guys that, have been in the UFC for a long time and then have putting up work in the UFC. And he beat Josh Koscheck. He's beaten some seriously talented people. Three guys in a row that have been in the top 5 of the division for the past 3 or 4 years. So you can't really deny that he's not. You can't really say that he's not the number one contender. He is the number one contender now, and I give him credit for that. He's had a lot of naysayers, and he's really proved his naysayers wrong, and has really stepped up to the challenge, especially in that Kampmann fight. Um, Carlos Condit is just as relevant now as he's ever been, even though he just fought GSP and lost. Carlos Condit could have one highlight reel knockout against somebody like he has had before and be right back in the thick of things. So I really like the 170 division. And I really see a lot of things happening for it. I think Nick Diaz needs to fight somebody, maybe Koscheck. If Nick Diaz beats Koscheck, that would be great. I think Johnny Hendricks versus GSP is the next logical fight for the 170 for George St. Pierre. GSP's not a guy that can fluctuate in weight class, so if he's even said that if he were to move up to middleweight, he'd have to take a really long strength and conditioning time to do that. It takes a lot. I was a wrestler in high school myself. I wrestled 2 years in college, so I know what it takes to have to fluctuate weight. Right now, I weigh probably around 160, but I wrestled around 135. I wrestled 135, 130, 125. Lowest I ever wrestled was 120, 119. And now, since high school, I've done a lot of strength training, and I've gotten bigger, more muscular than I was. So, and that took me time. It took me serious, work and time and preparation, and I had to prepare my body for before, and I had to prepare my body for afterwards. So, just being me, I'm a normal human guy. I'm not an athlete or anything like that. I mean, I was an athlete, but I'm not. Obviously, I'm not George St. Pierre. So it would take, GSP. It would take some time. He really wants to work at it. He's a perfectionist. He in everything he does, he's a perfectionist. Whether that be wrestling, kickboxing, or striking or anything. He really cares about the sport, and he cares about his career a lot. Now more than ever. He even said that he's had some renewed motivation after coming off that ACL injury. So I think we might even see, hard to believe it, but we might even see a better GSP in these next few years coming off this ACL injury. I was really impressed with how he fought. I really was. I didn't expect him to come out the way he did. He pushed Condit backwards. I have a little bit of a biased opinion on him because he is my favorite fighter, but really, anyone can agree with me. He is top 3 easily in the world Anderson Silva, GSP. I'd put him number one personally, but that's just me. Even before the ACL injury, he fought more than Anderson Silva, and he fought better competition than Anderson Silva. Legacy-wise, he has had a much better career than Anderson Silva has. He's beaten BJ Penn twice. He's beaten Matt Hughes twice. He lost to Matt Hughes, and then he came back and beat him, and then he beat him again. He did lose the fight. The knock on GSP is that the one loss against Matt Serra when he was a huge favorite, and he lost that fight. I actually have met Matt Serra myself at a Norco gas station, believe it or not, and he was a really nice guy. He was a really nice guy. I said to him, "You the guy that beat my favorite fighter?" And he was like, "Oh, GSP." He was a funny guy. But anyway, you know, he beat GSP, and then GSP got a second chance against Matt Serra, and he destroyed him. So he's avenged both of his losses. He's 23-2. The two losses that he's had, he's avenged. So you can make the case that he's undefeated pretty much with avenging those losses. He avenged them. I mean, they still happened. They'll always be on his record, but he avenged those losses. So I'm really, I'm proud of him as a fan of the UFC and as a sports fanatic. It's really nice to see someone come off a devastating injury and see them come back like that. Especially in this sport. The sport is so crazy with all the injuries that have happened to fighters and stuff. So, GSP, kudos to you for giving us a good fight to watch. Definitely the fight of the night, the best fight on the card. You did what you said you were going to do by beating Carlos Condit. Let's hope to see you back soon. I'd like to see you back soon. You're my favorite fighter to watch. Guys, I'm going to be posting more post-fight breakdowns and predictions. My next prediction video is going to be coming up next. UFC 155, Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos 2. Cain Velasquez, the challenger, going up against the reigning heavyweight champion, Junior Dos Santos. This is the second fight between the two of them. The first one, Junior Dos Santos dismantled Cain Velasquez in 64 seconds. UFC on Fox 1, which was a huge event in UFC history. And this one should be too. Also on that card is Forrest Griffin and Phil Davis. So I'm really looking forward to that and that card. And I'm looking forward to posting the UFC on Fox 6 prediction for you too. So you guys stay tuned, and I will see your comments around. Bye-bye.